Hi, here on the Bible Forum, I'm Warren Sprouse. I want to talk to you about religion in America. This is where we've ended up. The substance of this came from ChristianHeadlines.com. They report that something called FaithWire is reporting the explosion of all types of media has driven the religious car right off the side of the mountain. Clouds, a new movie about real-life musician Zach Sobiech, who grew up in a Roman Catholic household and dealt with a terminal diagnosis of osteosarcoma. It's a rare bone cancer. Seeks to document how following and trusting in God allows us to answer our true calling. The movie is available on Disney Plus and it's directed by Justin Baldoni, and it took 7 years to complete. Baldoni says, quote, "I made this movie for a few reasons. I made it to honor Zach, his legacy, his family, and their story. And I made it for a general audience to hopefully inspire them to remember what's important, to chase their dreams, to seize the day, recognize that they have one wild and precious life." That came from an interview from FaithWire. The dramatized documentary covers how Sobiech started out as just a regular teenager until he hit stardom as a musician in his senior year of high school. Imagine that, stardom at 17. Sobiech's song, Clouds, did so well that it topped the charts on iTunes 7 years ago. The film documents that event. All the while, Sobiech was struggling with terminal osteosarcoma. His illness even led his family to take a journey to Our Lady of Lourdes in France in hopes of finding divine healing. Now, according to Baldini, it was at this point that there was a miracle that took place. Sobiech traveled to France and realized what he wanted to do with his life. He didn't get healed, that wasn't the miracle. But the miracle was he knew what he wanted to do. Because of Lourdes, Zach really changed and recognized what he wanted to do with his time. It's where he decided he wanted to write music and pursue that dream in his final year of high school. But Baldoni did not want to ram faith down anybody's throat. There was an original scene where the mother prayed deeply to God, saying, quote, "If you're going to take my son, let it be for something big," end of quote. Now, this may not seem like a big deal to most Christians when watching a film about a Catholic family. But after consulting with the mother, he said they all agreed that, quote, "faith is so deeply personal, and it looks different for every Christian, for every Baha'i," as he gestures to himself, "and for every Jew. People experience prayer and God in different ways. We wanted any person to be able to have a spiritual experience while watching this movie." So the movie may not truly be a Christian film nor a witnessing tool, even though it documents people of faith trying to find God in a time of crisis. But it's still a powerful story about how crises affect families and what it takes to overcome them. That's what he said. Did you notice? None of the religions he mentioned are faith systems. Not one. Isn't it interesting that we all think of religion as a faith system when Baha'i and Judaism and Catholicism are all works related? If you're Catholic and you're offended, don't be. Your priest will tell you that as well. You have to be a Catholic to get to heaven. If you're not a Catholic and you actually get to heaven, Their official statement is, you would have been a Catholic had you known you needed to do that. Judaism, can you say 10 Commandments? It's a legal system. It's not a faith system. It's a works righteousness system. Do this, do that, at this time, in this way. The various tenets of Judaism require followers to do, not simply to believe. They don't care if you're good Jews or bad Jews, as long as you do what you're supposed to do. This is how messed up we are in terms of religions. And did I tell you? Bible Christianity is not a religion. As the kids say, I'm just saying. Michaela Matthews, writing in ChristianHeadlines.com, shares with us a religious conundrum. Apparently, a recent Pew Research Center study showed that religiously unaffiliated voters are on the rise, while Christian voters are steadily decreasing. Out of the 360,000 registered voters who were surveyed, Christian voters declined by 15% since 2008. That's the biggest difference. And it was the biggest difference in the Democrat Party. In 2008, 73% of Democrats claimed Christianity as their religion. In 2019, that number had dropped to 52%. Republican voters who identify as Christians are also steadily decreasing from 87% in 08 to 78% in 19. The author says what's going down is faith among the American people. The percentage of Americans who identify as Christians has been declining. This according to the National Association of Evangelicals Vice President of Government Relations. His name is Galen Carey. The number of Americans of faith is declining. The concern to us is not how many Christians are registered voters, but how many voters are Christian. Religiously unaffiliated voters in the Democrat Party have increased at a higher rate than in the Republican Party. Democrat unaffiliated went from 18% to 38% in 11 years. The Republican Party only increased 9%, from 9% to 15%, a much smaller span in the same time frame. And he says it's worth noting that being religiously unaffiliated does not necessarily imply anything about the respondents' politics. That is, it's not related to being a political independent. Regardless of the increase, Carey still argues a majority of Democrats identify as Christian. He said, quote, if you picked a Democrat at random, it's more likely he or she is a Christian than not. Now, when it comes to various issues, Democrats have swayed on abortion, religious freedom, while Republicans have largely stayed the same. In 2008, Democrats agreed abortion should be legal only under certain circumstances. But they changed that opinion in 2020 to supporting abortions legally in all circumstances. The 2020 presidential election did not show any significant change in evangelical support for Trump or the Republican Party, although votes are still being counted in several states. And we'll see. But this is how confused we are. In an email obtained by religion news service, Hillsong founding pastor Brian Houston has informed Hillsong East Coast staff and members that their pastor's name is Lentz, L-E-N-T-Z, that's his last name, was let go. He was let go due to leadership issues and breaches of trust. plus a recent revelation of moral failures. They won't say that he abandoned the faith and was found in sin, but that's basically what happened. Lentz is 41 years old. He was born and raised in Virginia. He would later play on the men's basketball team at North Carolina State University. In 2014 interview with the New York Post, Lentz explained that he was doing my own thing, being my own God during this time in university. And then he moved to Los Angeles to attend college and seminary. He would later continue his studies in Hillsong's training program, Hillsong College in Australia, where he met Laura. Now, I know what you're thinking. He would not consider himself a Christian while he was in college, and yet he went to Los Angeles to attend seminary. Anyway, Lentz eventually moved back to the United States, where he worked in youth ministry in Virginia Beach before moving to the neighborhood of Williamsburg, New York. In New York, he and Joel Houston would plant Hillsong New York City, or NYC, the first U.S. location of the Australian-based Hillsong Church. In 1983, pastors Brian and Bobby Houston founded the original Hillsong Church in the western suburbs of Sydney, Australia. Today it has locations in 28 countries around the world, with weekly pre-pandemic averages of 150,000 attendees. That from the church's website. Hillsong is also known for its popular worship groups, such as the Hillsong United and Hillsong Young and Free, as well as conferences. The picture we were given in the article is a smiling, bearded, black leather jacketed young man with a microphone. Now, in case you don't know what Hillsong is all about, Hillsong is a motivational, personality-driven form of what is today called Christianity. It's done in all sorts of venues, in all sorts of ways, by a wide range of personalities, all with a rock and roll beat. It appeals to the overtly secular crowd, at the same time not offending them a whole lot with the Bible. Or did I mention he was one of their pastors? Not just somebody who worked there. I just wonder where these people began. They certainly didn't do it with a Bible in their hand. According to a poll that was released this past Wednesday, November 4, U.S. President Donald Trump received the highest percent of the Jewish vote for a Republican in decades, while former Vice President Joe Biden hit a new low for a Democrat candidate in the same time period. The Republican Jewish Coalition survey conducted by Basswood Research and McLaughlin and Associates indicated that Biden's share of the Jewish vote was the lowest of any Democrat presidential candidate since 1988. It came in at 60.6%. At the same time, Donald Trump is the highest in that same time period, or probably forever. He came in at 30.5%. In the other election, former Republican President George H.W. Bush won 35% of the Jewish vote, while the Democrat nominee Dukakis won 64%. Democrats tend to vote liberal Democrats. In 2016, Trump received 24% of the Jewish vote, 6 percentage points lower than what presidential candidate Mitt Romney got 4 years earlier. Meanwhile, 78% of Republican Jews voted for Trump. 86% of Jewish Democrats voted for Biden, and 41% of Jewish independents voted for Biden, while 38% went for Trump. Orthodox Jews, some 70% of American Orthodox Jews voted for Trump. 19% of Orthodox Jews supported Biden. 57% of conservative Jews supported Biden, while 36% of conservative Jews supported Trump. 80% of Reform Jews voted for Biden. And 13% of Reform Jews voted Trump. Those not affiliated with any movement voted 57% for Biden, 32% for Trump. And we go through these numbers and we get a little bit groggy. But we have to ask ourselves, what have we learned? Jewish voters are liberal. Always have been. What it means is they don't like objective standards of right and wrong. Or they don't like the rules governments impose, regardless of what the government is. It's odd, since the Decalogue, we call it the Ten Commandments, their rules are radically, unwaveringly rigid. Standards set so high, it's very difficult to reach it. And the United States Constitution follows that Decalogue, those 10 Commandments. Of course, we follow it now lesser every decade, but that's where we started. This makes the majority of Jews statistically liberal, meaning they give lip service to their religion, but they don't actually believe it. And that philosophy follows them into the voting booth. What do I mean by that? The liberal wing of politics hates everything the U.S. stands for today. They'll deny it, but every step they take is a step away from what the founders envisioned. That makes liberals Americans in name only.